So, and it's not only at home. I believe that Jesus would have respected older people. He went to the synagogues, and I'm sure he respected the older people there. He didn't agree with them. He could see all the hypocrisy in all the Pharisees, but he didn't go around rebuking them when he was 15, 20, 25 years old, because God hadn't called him to do it. Can you imagine Jesus sitting at the age of 25 in a synagogue and seeing the absolute hypocrisy of everything going on there, what they called worship, and the boring messages he sat. Any of you who have to endure some boring message, and sometimes many CFC people write to me, brother, please tell our elder, he's so boring. At least if he'd speak 15 minutes, it would be great. But he speaks for 1 hour. And when he thinks he's finished, he goes on for another 15 minutes. And I say, well, I don't know what to say. I keep telling these elders, don't speak more than 20 minutes. But then none of them listen to me, so I leave it. I don't force them. But I say, when you are tempted like that, think of Jesus at the age of 25, listening to these boring Pharisees going on and on and on and on in the synagogue. And he just endured it. He knew 1,000,000 times more than them, but he kept quiet. Can you do that? One day the Father will say about you, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Because he listened to boring sermons and kept quiet because it was not yet his time to do anything or say anything. There are many, many things we learn by submission. I've been in many meetings like that as a young man. And I heard these boring sermons. And the Lord said, keep your mouth shut and listen. I remember once in the early days when, even in CFC, we used to throw the meeting open in the early days of CFC for everybody to speak. And then, of course, some people who never got a chance to speak in any church would get up and start sharing something. And I remember when one of these people was not even really I don't even know whether he was a believer, but he got up and started sharing something. And I said, Lord, what shall I do? I don't want to ask him to sit down because he had just started. I mean, if he had gone beyond 5 minutes, I'd have asked him, brother, please. I don't tell people to sit down. I don't insult them like that. I say, brother, we'd like to hear some of the others as well now. So I think let's give them a turn or something, in a gracious way. Anyway, I was listening to this man, and from the beginning, it was just boring. And I said, Lord, please give me something. So he turned to some verse. He turned to something like, let's turn to 1 Peter 2 or something like that. So I turned to 1 Peter 2. And believe it or not, the Lord showed me an amazing revelation from the opposite page, which this man was not even referring to. So I said, this is amazing. I would not have seen that in the other page if this man had not turned to the other chapter. I said, how wonderful God is. So God can do. I learned something that day. If you are really seeking God, even in a boring meeting, God can speak to you, not through what that guy is saying, but from the opposite page of what that guy is quoting in the Bible. Amazing. God is so powerful. And this is how I've learned so many things through the years. I sat in many boring meetings. Dear brothers and sisters, instead of sitting complaining, why not say, Lord, here I've got no authority in this church. I've got to listen to this boring sermon of this guy. I don't know how long he's going to go on. But I'll turn to the chapter he told me to turn to. Maybe you'll show me something else from the opposite page. And I'll get something out of this meeting. So I won't go away from this meeting empty. And some other brothers who are not as wholehearted as you would say, oh, brother, wasn't that a boring meeting? We got nothing out of it. And you say, hey, you got nothing out of it? I got something. Not from what he said, but I got something from the other page. When there's absolutely nothing God cannot do. Why do you say that you don't get anything? So I've learned something about submission to authority because I learned it from Jesus. How he must have submitted to boring Pharisees for years in the synagogue. How he submitted to Joseph and Mary at home and everything.